This week, we're learning the Sikha of Shabbos Parsha Shlach, Mevorchim HaChodesh Tammuz of Tafshin Nun Aleph. The Sikha can be found in Sefer HaSichas Tafshin Nun Aleph, Chelik Beis, page 617. The Rebbe starts off the Farbrengen by saying that we spoke many times regarding the division of Kriyas HaTorah to the various different Parshias of the week. That even though every single Shabbos we read one specific parsha of the Torah that's connected to the time of the year when we read it, and every single day of the week we learn a part of the parsha that's connected specifically to that day, nevertheless, every parsha of the Torah and every single part of the parsha is of course connected to the whole of the Torah, starting from Bereshis till the very last words of the Torah, La'enei Kol Yisrael. To use the terminology of this week's parsha, that all of Torah is a Torah achas. It is all one Torah. Just like in one parsha, every single part of the parsha is connected with all of the parsha, as emphasized in the fact that we read on one particular Shabbos, which the Shabbos is the culmination of the whole week. We read a whole parsha from beginning until the end. We read it betzibur with the brachos before and the brachos after. So in a similar way, the parsha is also a part of the whole Torah. This is specifically emphasized in the parsha of this week, Parsha Shlach. In other words, the fact that all of the parsha is all to do with each other, it's all part of one parsha, as well as the idea that the parsha is a part of and represents all of Torah. Parsha Shlach deals with, in the majority, all on one topic, the inyan of the Meraglim, starting with the sending of the Meraglim, which is right at the beginning of the parsha, and that goes until Sheni. The parsha goes on to speak about how they went to Eretz Yisrael and how they returned, what they brought back, the report that they had brought back to Moshe and Aaron and to all of Bnei Yisrael, and everything that happened as a result of that, the punishment, etc. And that's in the parsha all the way from Sheni until close to Chamishi. That's most of the parsha. Also the continuation of the parsha of the Nesachim, where the pasuk says, Ki savoyu el eretz moishvoiseichem, when you will come into Eretz Yisrael, and you will bring karbonos to Hashem, and you will have to bring yayin lanesech, the wine that needs to be poured on the mizbeach. This too is connected to the parsha of the Meraglim. That is, that even though the Yidden had sinned, and it was decreed on them to wander through the Midbar, nevertheless they were given the good news that eventually they will go into Eretz Yisrael. And this is what the Torah is discussing from the end of Revi all the way until Shishi. So this is one long story that takes up many psukim in the majority of the parsha. So that in order to know the whole inyan, the whole story, it is not enough to learn one part of the parsha. Rather, you have to learn all of the parts of the parsha until the end of the whole inyan, which this emphasizes that most of the parsha, or all of the parsha, is really all one inyan and all one parsha. Furthermore, says the Rebbe, the very end of Parsha Shlach, we know the concept that Akoil Hoilech, Achar Achitum, that everything goes according to the end. So Parsha Shlach finishes off with the inyan of Tzitzis. The idea of Tzitzis is that even though it's an individual mitzvah, it is one of 613 mitzvahs of the Torah, and yet it's about this mitzvah that we say that it weighs equally to all the mitzvahs of the Torah. As the pasuk says, "Re'isem oisa," you will see the Tzitzis. "Uzchartem," and you will remember all the mitzvahs of Hashem. As Chazal tell us that the gematria, the numerical value of the word Tzitzis, is 600, along with the 8 strings and the 5 knots, makes 613. So Tzitzis reminds us of all of the mitzvahs. So here we have one particular mitzvah which represents all of the mitzvahs. In a similar way in Torah, that every inyan in Torah and every parsha in Torah really is connected to all of Torah. Because as we said before, all of Torah is called a Torah achas, one Torah. Says the Rebbe, we need to understand, number one, since all things of Torah are absolutely accurate, it makes sense to say that the fact that this idea of the unity within Torah is expressed specifically in Parsha Shlach, As we said, Parsha Shlach is a parsha where you see that the whole parsha is all discussing one topic, as well as the idea of Tzitzis, which represents all the mitzvahs of the Torah. So we have to say that this idea of representing Achdus in Torah is somehow specifically connected with the story of the Meraglim. Point number 2 is also to understand the connection of all of this to the particular time when we read Parsha Shlach, which is of course in the end of Chodesh Sivan, as all of this will be explained later. In order to understand this, says the Rebbe in Siv Beis, we're first going to explain the story of the Meraglim itself, both within the Parshas HaShavua, as well as in the Haftorah, which is considered the ending of the Parsha, that even though the Haftorah is in some way similar to the Parsha, and clearly in this case it's the story also of Meraglim, the Meraglim of Yehoshua, and yet we see a number of changes when we compare them to the story of the Meraglim that were sent by Moshe Rabbeinu, as the Mefarshim also point out some of these differences. And to mention a few, number 1, by the Meraglim of Moshe, the Pasuk says, Shlach Lecha. What does Shlach Lecha mean? Rashi explains, Pshutei Shel Mikra, the simple pshat of the Pasuk is, that Hashem is telling Moshe Rabbeinu, L'daitecha, this is your decision. I'm not commanding you. If you want, then send. Where is the Meraglim of Yehoshua? As the Alter Rebbe points out, surely Yehoshua did not do it on his own. Surely the Eibishter commanded him to do it. And this could be understood simply. It doesn't even have to be specified in the Pasuk. After what had happened as a result of the Meraglim of Moshe, without being commanded by Hashem, surely Yehoshua wouldn't have sent Meraglim on his own. We must say that Hashem commanded him. So that's the first difference. Difference number 2 is by Moshe, the Pasuk says, Shlach lecha anoshim, send men. It doesn't say send spies, it says men. V'yosuru es Eretz Canaan, they should tour the land of Eretz Canaan. It doesn't say they should spy the land. Whereas by Yehoshua, it says first of all, Anoshim Meraglim, you should send spies. And then it says, Lach Poiris HaOretz, and Lach Poiris HaKol HaOretz Ba'u, clearly that they were sent to spy the land. So again, by Moshe Rabbeinu, it's not emphasized that they're spies. It says he sent men to tour the land, and by Yehoshua, it's clearly spies. Point number 3, by the Meraglim of Moshe, how many Meraglim did Moshe Rabbeinu send? He sent 1 spy for each Shevet. He sent 12 people for the 12 Shvatim. Whereas by the Meraglim of Yehoshua, Yehoshua only sent Shnayim Anoshim, 2 people. Point number 4, by the Meraglim of Moshe, who did Moshe Rabbeinu send? He sent leaders of Yidden. Kol Nasi Bohem, the Pasuk says, Roshei B'nai Yisrael Hema, they were leaders amongst Yidden. The Eilish Moisim, the Pasuk specifies who they were. Whereas by Yehoshua, first of all, it just says Shnayim Anoshim. It just says it was 2 men. Doesn't say anything special about them. In fact, it doesn't even say their names. Definitely nothing special about them. The Rebbe says, point number 5, another difference. Moshe Rabbeinu, the way he sent the Meraglim, was in a public way. First of all, in regards to Bnei Yisrael, all of Bnei Yisrael knew that Moshe Rabbeinu was sending Meraglim. When they came back from their shlichus, they come back and speak to Moshe and to all of the Yidden. Also, in regards to the inhabitants of Eretz Yisrael, we don't find that the Meraglim did anything to hide themselves so that they shouldn't be noticed, so that they shouldn't be suspected. It wasn't as if they split up and each one just went to a different part of Eretz Yisrael. Rather, they all went together in a very, very noticeable way. The Eibishter had to make a miracle that nobody should notice them, that wherever they passed, so people were busy with funerals, with burials, so that no one should notice them. But again, by the Meraglim of Yehoshua, it's quite different. The Pasuk says clearly, Meraglim Cheresh, that they were sent on a hidden mission. They were sent in secret. And that's again both in regards to Bnei Yisrael, that Yehoshua did not want that anybody should know about these spies, so he sent them in secret. When they come back from their mission, the Pasuk says they came to Yehoshua and reported back. They didn't come to all of Bnei Yisrael, as in the case by Moshe Rabbeinu. as well as regarding the inhabitants of Eretz Yisrael, Yeshua told them that they should hide themselves. And the term the pasuk uses is Meraglim Cheresh. What does the word Cheresh mean? So there's two explanations of what that means. First of all, is that he told them that you should pretend as if you are deaf, so that people shouldn't be careful in speaking in front of you, so they'll be able to say whatever they have on their mind, you'll be able to hear all of their secrets. Another pshat of the word Cheresh is like the word Cheres, which means pottery, that you should pretend as if you are carrying pots. So again, you should pretend that you're just blending in with the people. So clearly, they were supposed to be in a way that's inconspicuous, in a way that's hidden. And in fact, during their shlichus, we find that they had to hide so that the people of the land shouldn't see them. As the pasuk says, "Vatikach ha'isha shnei ha'anoshim vatitzpanoi," Rochav had taken the two men and hid them, and eventually she tells them to hide in the mountains, and in case anybody is chasing after you, etc., etc. So that's another difference with the Meraglim of Moshe Rabbeinu going in an open way and the Meraglim of Yeshua going in a secret way. Finally, point number 6, a sixth difference. By the Meraglim of Moshe Rabbeinu, they were supposed to go, and they went a whole of Eretz Yisrael in its length and in its breadth, 400 parsa by 400 parsa, over a period of 40 days. Whereas by the Meraglim of Yehoshua, even though they were commanded to go and see the land and Yericho, not only Yericho but the land, nevertheless, not only did they only go into Yericho and not to the rest of Eretz Yisrael, but furthermore, even Yericho itself they didn't manage to go into, because the very night that they came to the house of Rochav, so they also had to leave the city. She let them down through her house, through the window that was in the wall of the city. And the pasuk says they went and they came into the mountains, and they had to stay in the mountains for 3 days until the people chasing them had left. And immediately they came back to Yeshua, so they didn't go through the whole land. They didn't even go through one city. And with that, their mission was complete. So again, just briefly to go through the differences that the Rebbe just mentioned. So point number 1 is that by the Meraglim of Moshe, it was of his own choice. By the Meraglim of Yeshua, Hashem told him to send. By Moshe Rabbeinu, it was just people that he sent. It doesn't say he sent spies. They were supposed to tour the land. It doesn't say anything about spying. By Yeshua, it was clearly spies. Point number 3 is by Meraglim of Moshe Rabbeinu. It was 12 people. By Yeshua, it was only 2. Point number 4, by the Meraglim of Moshe Rabbeinu was leaders, famous leaders, specified by name. By the Meraglim of Yeshua, it just says 2 people. It doesn't specify anything special about them or their names. Point number 5 is by Moshe Rabbeinu, the Meraglim went in a public way. By Yeshua, they went in a secret way. And point number 6 is by the Meraglim of Moshe Rabbeinu, they went through all of Eretz Yisrael, whereas Yehoshua, they barely touched Eretz Yisrael. Says the Rebbe in Seif Gimel, the point of the explanation for all of this is that what the Meraglim of Moshe Rabbeinu were achieving and were supposed to achieve, and what the Meraglim of Yeshua were achieving was actually 2 different things, but they join each other, they complete each other, they complement each other for one purpose and for one goal, for conquering and going into Eretz Yisrael. In order to understand this, the Rebbe prefaces that when we send Meraglim, when we send spies, it could actually have 2 purposes and 2 goals. One is in order to conquer the land, as is the style when a nation wants to come in to fight in a foreign land. They will send people to find out the various different openings of the city, the ways of the city, so that when the army will come into the land, these people, these spies, will lead the army and show them the exact way and advise them which way is the easiest way to conquer the city, which roads they should take, which ways they should take, which entrances they should take, etc. That could be one option, and number one reason why Meraglim are sent. A second reason could be, this is for the purpose of going into the land and settling the land. That is, to try to get to know and appreciate what the land is all about. So they should be able to come back and report to the people what kind of great place it is, so that people should be interested in entering this land. Says the Rebbe, via Shloimar, we could explain that when Moshe Rabbeinu sent the Meraglim, and again, this was not that he was commanded to send, but it was of his own choice, it wasn't so much for the purpose of conquering the land, to find out how to conquer it, what are the roads, what are the paths, what are the entrances. Because in the time of Moshe Rabbeinu, there was really no need for that, as will soon be explained. Rather, the main thing was to find out the qualities of the land, to find out how beautiful and great Eretz Yisrael is. That was the purpose of Moshe's Meraglim. On the other hand, the purpose of the Meraglim of Yehoshua wasn't in order to find out how great the land is, because that was actually already accomplished through the Meraglim of Moshe Rabbeinu. The Meraglim of Yehoshua was actually in order to figure out the best way of conquering the land, to find out the paths, the ways, the entrances, because in the time of Yehoshua there was a need for that, again, as will all be explained in detail soon. So basically what the Rebbe is saying is there's two different purposes for what Meraglim might be sent, and in the times of Moshe Rabbeinu it was more to understand the quality of Eretz Yisrael. In the time of Yehoshua it was more for the point of how to conquer Eretz Yisrael. In order to explain this, says the Rebbe in Siv Daled, even though the Yidden, when they asked for spies, it was clearly to spy the land, and as the Pasuk says, that they wanted that the spies should come back and tell them how to conquer the land. Nevertheless, when we look at Moshe Rabbeinu's words to the Meraglim, we don't find that he tells them to spy the land to find out what's the easiest way to conquer the land. Why not? Says the Rebbe very, very simply. Since the conquering of Eretz Yisrael was not going to be in the regular way how an army conquers a land, b'derech hateva, in a natural way, rather it was going to be through the Eibishter, through Hashem himself. As Moshe Rabbeinu in fact says, when he's rebuking the Yidden for this very request to send people to spy the land, what does Moshe Rabbeinu say? Hashem Elokeichem ha'holich lefneichem hu yilachem lachem. Hashem that's going before you will fight for you. Hashem that goes in front of you at night with fire to show you the way, and during the day with clouds. In other words, that there's no need to find out what's the best ways of conquering the land, because the Eibishter is sending his cloud to show you the way. If that's the case, what is Moshe Rabbeinu sending Meraglim for? As the Pasuk says clearly, Moshe Rabbeinu sent them Lasur es haaretz, to tour the land, to see the qualities of the land, the benefits of the land. As Moshe Rabbeinu says, Ureisem es haaretz mai, have a look at the land, hatoivahi, whether it's good, hashmeinahi, whether it's fat. And that's why he tells them, V'yischazaktem ulekachtem, make a special effort to go ahead and take from the fruit of the land, so that the Yidden should be able to see the beautiful, great fruit of Eretz Yisrael. Furthermore, even when Moshe Rabbeinu tells them to see the nation of Eretz Yisrael, whether they are strong or weak, whether they are few or many, was not in order to know whether we'll be able to conquer the land easily or not. Rather, it's in order to find out how great Eretz Yisrael is, because a land has an impact on the inhabitants, on the people living there. As Rashi himself says, Yesh Eretz megadeles giborim. There are certain countries, there are certain lands that produce strong people, and there are some places that produce weak people. There are some places that produce large populations, and there are some places that produce small populations. Hama'atu imrav. So have a look whether it's a big nation or a small nation. So in other words, it's not about seeing the nation, whether they're strong or big on their own, rather that itself is supposed to prove how great Eretz Yisrael is. Furthermore, even when Moshe Rabbeinu says to them, you should see the cities, whether they are open cities or fortified cities with walls, was again not to know whether it's going to be easy to conquer the land, but that itself is to help them know whether these are strong people or weak people. As Rashi says, Moshe Rabbeinu gave them a sign. If they are sitting in open cities, obviously they rely on their own strength. That means they are strong. If they are sitting in walled cities, that means they are weak. And again, what's the point of knowing whether they're strong or weak? Not in order to know how easy it will be to conquer Eretz Yisrael. Instead, as we said, there's a land that produces strong people and places that produce weak people. This was in order to prove to Eretz Yisrael, to the Yidden, how great Eretz Yisrael is. In fact, this shlichus, this point of seeing how great Eretz Yisrael is, was actually fulfilled by the Meraglim. The Meraglim actually fulfilled this part of the mission completely. They come back with a report and say, Banu el Aretz, we came to the land to which you have sent us. It flows with milk and honey, and these are the fruit. In fact, if they wouldn't have messed up with adding a little bit more to that, adding to their shlichus regarding conquering the land, when they go on and they say, but the nation is too strong, we won't be able to go up, etc. If not for that, all of the Yidden would have gone into Eretz Yisrael immediately, joyously and happily. So that was the point of the Meraglim of Moshe Rabbeinu, to find out how great Eretz Yisrael is. In the time of Yoshua, there was no need to see how great Eretz Yisrael is. That was accomplished already by the Meraglim of Moshe. Yeshua's Meraglim are going to find out how to conquer Eretz Yisrael. Why do they need to find out how to conquer Eretz Yisrael? Because since when they are going in now with Yeshua, it's not going to be on the same high level as it would have been through Moshe Rabbeinu. Now they are going to need more ways al pi derech hateva, and therefore, first of all, they need Meraglim, as is the style of any army before going into a foreign country, and including also other natural means, because it's already not the times of Moshe Rabbeinu. Says the Rebbe in Seif Hey, based on this, that we now understand that these two groups of Meraglim are so different to each other. Again, the first group of Moshe Rabbeinu is just to see the beauty of the land. The second one through Yeshua is actually like regular spies, to find out how to conquer the land. We can now understand all the differences between these two groups of Meraglim, of Moshe and Yeshua. In the time of Moshe, the Eibishter didn't say to send Meraglim. Why not? Since if the main reason of sending Meraglim usually is to spy and see how to conquer the land, that is not going to be relevant when the Eibishter is going to do this all in a miraculous way. It is only since the Yidden came and said, we would like to send people in front of us to Eretz Yisrael, they do want to send spies. So Moshe Rabbeinu agreed with the hope that when they see that he is not being hesitant about this, and when he sees that they still want to send spies, so he discusses it with the Eibishter, whether there's any point of sending spies, even just to see how great Eretz Yisrael is. The Eibishter says, Shlach lecha, if you want, send. That means what the Eibishter is saying is, from my part, there's no need for Meraglim at all, not even for seeing how great Eretz Yisrael is. Because I told you already that it's such a good land. The Pasuk says already right in the beginning, when the Eibishter sends Moshe Rabbeinu, I'm going to bring you up from the pain and affliction of Mitzrayim to a land flowing with milk and honey. Nevertheless, Moshe Rabbeinu thought that when the Meraglim will see how great Eretz Yisrael is, there will be a benefit, because Moshe, as the leader and as the faithful shepherd of the Yidden, he felt that there is a need for the Yidden to hear a report about Eretz Yisrael from people that would have seen it. They will tell them how great Eretz Yisrael is, and then they will go up happily and joyously. If that's the case, what does the Pasuk say? Shlach lecha anoshim. It doesn't say send spies. It doesn't say they should spy the land. Send people to tour the land of Canaan that I'm giving to the Bnei Yisrael, and you'll send one man from each shevet, and the leaders of the Shvatim, the 12 Nesiim. Why is that? Since the point of the mission is to make the Yidden excited about going into Eretz Yisrael, so there's a need to send a leader, a messenger, and a leader from each one of the Shvatim. Because each one of these leaders know the needs of his shevet, know the specific qualities and character traits and things that shevet needs and likes. So they themselves, these Nasiim, will have a look at Eretz Yisrael. Eretz Yisrael is going to be divided by the 12 Shvatim. So when each one of the leaders of these 12 Shvatim will bring back a report about how great Eretz Yisrael is, and the 12 Shvatim will hear from their leaders how great Eretz Yisrael is, all of Eretz Yisrael, including the part that they are going to get, so then all the Yidden are going to go up in a very, very happy way to Eretz Yisrael. So we understand now why it was not spies that were sent. They weren't sent as spies. We also understand why it's 12 people and the leaders of Bnei Yisrael. For this reason, they also had to go through all of Eretz Yisrael, which took them 40 days, and not in a way that each one will go just to one part of Eretz Yisrael. Maybe just the part that's connected to his shevet. Why is that? Since the mission of these 12 leaders is so that every single Nasi should be able to guarantee to his shevet and to testify that I saw the portion in Eretz Yisrael, and it's going to be the best and the greatest. So as long as Eretz Yisrael was not divided into the 12 Shvatim, it was not known yet the exact specific place that each shevet is going to get, which was going to be done later through a goyrel at the end of the 40 years, as the pasuk says. And in fact, the goyrel itself only was after the land was conquered through Yoshua. Therefore, all the 12 Nasiim needed to go through all of Eretz Yisrael so that they could guarantee that they also saw their part in Eretz Yisrael and be able to say that every part of Eretz Yisrael is so great and beautiful. We could also understand now why they weren't sent in a quiet, secret way. They went in a public way. Needless to say, regarding the Bnei Yisrael, if the whole point is that they should come and tell the Bnei Yisrael how great Eretz Yisrael is in order to make them happy and joyous, so surely there's no need to hide it. On the contrary, it needs to be known. But furthermore, even when they come into Eretz Yisrael, there's no need to hide. In addition to the fact that they don't do anything to hide themselves as Meraglim, which will usually try to mingle and mix between the people in order to hear what they're talking about, to find out whether they are scared of the enemy, to know their thought process, and so on and so forth. But there's absolutely no need for that. They were not sent to spy the land. They were not afraid to draw attention from the people of the land by walking together, which is the whole purpose was in order to fulfill the shlichus of seeing all of Eretz Yisrael, and they all had to see every part of Eretz Yisrael. So there was absolutely no need to go in hiding. Just like the conquering of the land is going to be through the Eibishter, not in a natural way, so too the sending and the going of the Meraglim was also not really taking Teva into consideration, not worrying about any natural dangers, and they're not hiding at all. L'poil, the Eibishter made a nes that people should be involved in their own mourning, etc., and people shouldn't pay attention to them. That's all in regards to the Meraglim of Moshe Rabbeinu. When it comes to the Meraglim of Yoshua, since their mission is a completely different one, it wasn't to see the greatness of the land, which was known already through the Meraglim of Moshe Rabbeinu. Rather, here it is more similar to regular spies that are coming to fight a foreign country in a natural way. So therefore, first of all, Yoshua sends 2 people, and he sends them as spies, and he sends them quietly. So it's only 2 people, it's not 12. The pasuk says anoshim, doesn't say leaders, because the need for the leaders, we explained before, was to notify all of the Yidden the benefit of Eretz Yisrael and all parts of Eretz Yisrael, etc. But if it's a mission to spy the land, then 2 people are enough. In fact, it's even better to have less people going around. Furthermore, it's not the leaders, we just say anoshim, it's people. They're going undercover. And Meraglim Cheresh, their shlichus is in a quiet way. Both in regards to the Bnei Yisrael, there's no need for the Yidden to know that spies were sent. In fact, it is better that they don't know, so that it should not become public knowledge. The only ones that have to know is the leaders of the war, the heads of the army, etc. the ones that they have to tell which way you're going to have to go into Eretz Yisrael, definitely regarding the people in Eretz Yisrael, definitely shouldn't know that there are spies amongst them, and therefore they have to do all sorts of things in order to hide themselves. Why don't they go through the whole Eretz Yisrael? Once they hear Rachav saying that I know that Hashem has given the land before you, and that all the Goyim in Eretz Yisrael are terrified of you, the hearts of everyone has been melting away. No one has the spirit and the strength to stand up against you. So there's no need to go out into the city anymore to find out what people are saying. And therefore, after hiding for 3 days, because there was people looking for them and chasing them, they come back to Yeshua and they have their ready report. Nasan Hashem biyadenu es kol haaretz. Hashem has given the land in our hands. No moigu kol yeshvei haaretz mipanenu. Everyone is scared of us. Their hearts are melting before us. Their shlichus is complete. And therefore, there's nothing else for them to do over here. Says the Rebbe in Ivov. Based on this, we could explain a general question or wonder in the whole story of the Meraglim. It's explained in many places regarding the special mila, the quality of the Meraglim. As the pasuk says, Kulam anoshim, they were all men, which is a lashon chshivus, a lashon of importance. Oisa shak sheirim hayu, at that point they were kosher, that means they were fitting, they were the proper people to be sent. Roshei Alfei Yisrael Hema, they were the leaders of the Yidden. They were chosen from amongst all Yidden, from the very best of the Yidden. In Chassidus it explains that they were on such a high level that they didn't want to lower themselves down to get into the physical world of action, with mitzvahs of action, drawing down Hashem into this world. They wanted to stay in the midbar on a more spiritual level, in a place where they'll be able to be learning Torah all the time. Torah was given in the midbar. So they were not interested in going into a place where they're going to be having to be involved in all worldly things of plowing and sowing and so on and so forth. So they're on a very, very high level. In fact, even after their sin, when it says Ein lohem chelek la'olam haba, there's an opinion that explains that they're on such a high level that olam haba wouldn't even be considered a reward for them. That's according to one explanation. So the Meraglim are considered on a very, very high level, and especially according to Chassidus, explaining their deeper intentions and so on and so forth. The question then is, after discussing all the great milos, virtues and qualities of the Meraglim, how does it make sense to say that as a result of sending these Meraglim, what actually came out practically, not their thoughts and intentions and all of that, it would seem to be that the bottom line, what came out in this physical world, seemed to be only negative and negative. Nothing positive came out of it. We could explain all of their great spiritual intentions, but how does it make sense that the bottom line in this world seems to be that nothing positive came out of it? Says the Rebbe, but based on everything we explained before, the purpose of why these Meraglim were sent, says the Rebbe, we could say that even practically in this world, there was definitely a positive result that came from sending the Meraglim. That is, when they came and they said, we came to the land that you sent us. It's flowing with milk and honey, and these are the fruit. Now the Yid knew clear, and with certainty, not only in a way of emunah, the great benefits and qualities of the land. And this had the effect, at a later time, when they were going to go into Eretz Yisrael in the time of Yeshua, that they're going in happily, excited, based also and relying also on the words of the Meraglim of Moshe that saw begashmius the beauty of Eretz Yisrael. So in other words, even practically, they actually fulfilled their mission, and it had an effect on a deeper level, according to Chassidus. In their shlichus to tour the land, they actually achieved something very great. Not only eventually, but even at that time, to use Rashi's words, Oisa shak sheirim hayu, at that time, they were great people. That is, that in a certain sense, they started the conquering and entering into Eretz Yisrael for all the Yidden, by all the Yidden. In other words, the beginning started already through them. And the Rebbe says we could add and make this even more geschmack, that in the general idea of conquering and entering Eretz Yisrael, especially by sending Meraglim, by sending spies first, this emphasizes the whole idea of birur hatachtoin, of elevating and dealing with things from bottom up and transforming the world. And that is specifically emphasized by the fact that Yidden are going to enter with great simcha and with great desire as a result of sending the Meraglim of Moshe that saw with their physical eyes the beauty of the land, that now they are excited about going into Eretz Yisrael, not only because of their emunah in Hashem that had promised them that it's a good land, but also mitzad tachtoin, also on their own, they are realizing how great Eretz Yisrael is. Says the Rebbe v'yesh loymar, this is also hinted in the words of Rashi, oiso shok ksherim hoyu. At that time they were kosher. What's this expression, ksherim specifically? Why not? They were tzaddikim or other similar expressions. So the Rebbe says the word kosher is a Rosh Tevis. A pasuk in Tehillim, Kimoitze Shalol Rov, which means as one who finds great spoil. What is Shalol? What is spoil? Something that was originally by the enemy, originally by the opposition, and was taken in war. Kimoitze Shalol, what does it mean? Something that was found. In other words, something that was completely higher and beyond the effort that has been put in to get it. Furthermore, Kemoitze Shalol Rav, which means in a tremendous amount. That's when it's called Rav, when it's so much and so many that there's nothing more and greater than it. So Kemoitze Shalol Rav. This is what the pasuk is saying. This is what Rashi says. Oisa shak sheirimoy. What does it mean that at that time they were kosher? That the whole point of their shlichus, to tour the land, as an opening, as in a beginning, to entering and conquering the land that the Yidden should go in joyously and happily. This is the idea of birur hatachton. This is the idea of elevating and refining and bringing up the tachton in a way of kimoitze shalol rav, in a way of like the Rosh Tevis of kosher. That is, that the whole point of why Yidden are going into Eretz Yisrael is all to elevate the place, to refine the place, to elevate and refine this lowly world, to make it a place, a dira b'tachtoinim, for Hashem. This is the real idea of kimoitze shalol rav. That is, you're taking from the enemy, you're taking the darkness, transforming it into light. You're making that this dark world, this lowly world, should be a place where the Eibishter is going to shine. Dafka in the place of the klipa of the Sitra Achra, and in a much greater way, Dafka, the light that comes out of the darkness. So in other words, just to summarize this last point, the fact that we call the Meraglim Kimoy Ksherim, kosher, which is Rosh Tevis Kimoitze Shalol Rav, that is to say that the Meraglim are actually fulfilling this mission and this point of helping elevate this world, transforming a place that was by the enemy, that was by the Klippa, taking the spoil away from the Klippa. That means taking all of the things that need to be refined, transforming it and bringing it into Kedusha. Says the Rebbe in Siv Zayin, more specifically, there are two ways or two stages in the sending of Meraglim which complement each other and help each other out. This is the job of the Meraglim of Moshe, which were the 12 people, one of each Shevet, and the Meraglim of Yeshua, which were the 2 people. To understand this, the Rebbe says, we'll first explain a little bit more this idea of sending the 12 people, one from each Shevet, which we explained that each one was to see Eretz Yisrael and the part that's going to be for his Shevet. But to explain this a little bit more, al pi Chassidus. Since Eretz Yisrael is divided into 12 parts, corresponding to the 12 Shvatim of the Yidden, every single Shevet has his own path and his own Avodah. For example, we know there's the general division of Yisachar and Zvulun, those that sit and learn Torah all day long, and those that are more involved in business, those that are more involved in Torah, those that are involved in Maisim Tovim, in good deeds. So too, more specifically, there's differences regarding all 12 Shvatim. In according to the level and to the avoid of each Shevet, each one has a specific part in Eretz Yisrael that he needs to elevate, that he needs to refine, that's more shaykh to his particular avodah. And when we combine the avodah of all 12 shvatim together, Yachad Shiftei Yisrael, when all 12 parts are worked on and elevated, so then we elevate the whole world, because really Eretz Yisrael includes and has a part of each part of the whole world, as the Midrash Chazal explained, that every kind of land, every kind of place has something in Eretz Yisrael similar to it. So by refining and elevating all of Eretz Yisrael, so in this way we are elevating the whole world. But if that's the case, says the Rebbe, we need to understand B'pnimiyus and Yonim, and in the deeper level, what was the point of all the Shvatim going to all of Eretz Yisrael, not only to his particular portion. Even though we said before that the Goyrel wasn't made yet, but it is known that at least some of the Shvatim definitely knew their portions from Birchas Yaakov. So what was the reason? Definitely, Al Pi Chassidus, we need to understand why every single Nasi needs to see all of Eretz Yisrael, also of the other Shvatim. Seemingly, since his avodah of his shevet is only shaykh to his particular shevet and his part of Eretz Yisrael, what would be the need and what would be the benefit that he should see also the parts of the other shvatim that clearly is an avodah that needs to be done by the other shvatim? So the Rebbe says we can explain this first of all very, very simply, and then the Rebbe is going to explain it a little bit deeper. So first of all, the Rebbe says, as we have a concept, of course, called v'ahavta l'reacha kamoicha. All Yidden are responsible for each other. All Yidden are guarantors for each other. All Yidden are mixed together, and all Yidden are one unit and one body. So therefore, clearly, every single Nasi has a shaykhus also to all of the other shvatim. But on a deeper level, the Rebbe says that by the fact that all the shvatim are uniting, which is emphasized by the fact that every Nasi went to all over Eretz Yisrael, by all the Shvatim uniting, this is actually causing the refinement and elevation of Eretz Yisrael in a higher way. Coming from a level where all Yidden are as one higher than the division of 12 Shvatim. And nevertheless, it comes down into the division of 12 Shvatim, as will soon be explained. In order to explain this, the Rebbe says in Seif Ches, we'll first explain this by explaining the connection of the Meraglim, the sending of the Meraglim to Chodesh Sivan. The Meraglim were sent on Chav Tes Sivan. Also, we always read the story of the Meraglim close to the end of Chodesh Sivan, and Chodesh Sivan is of course the month of Matan Torah. Now it's known that the way the world is elevated is done with the koyach and through the avodah of the Yidden in Torah. To use the terminology of Kabbalah and Chassidus, that b'chachma is bariru. It is specifically through chachma, through wisdom, through the chachma of Torah that gives the power to elevate the world. Says the Rebbe, it is because of this reason that the Meraglim were sent at the end of Chodesh Sivan. Since their job is to start elevating the world, conquering the world, conquering Eretz Yisrael and going into Eretz Yisrael. So it starts in the month of Matan Torah, when we are going from the time of Matan Torah into the world with the koyach of Torah. Now, since in Yisrael and in Torah there are two general levels, there's one level, the point of unity, how it's all one, and also there's the idea of division. As it's known that Yisrael is a Rosh Tevis Yesh Shishim Ribui Oisius LaTorah, which means there are 600,000 letters in the Torah, meaning to say that every single Yid has his own individual letter in the Torah from which he draws his chayas. Now, al pi din, every single letter needs to be separate from the other letters. Every single letter needs to be surrounded with parchment. Every single letter needs to be by itself. So on the one hand, we're looking at the idea that every Yid or every letter is a separate inyan for itself. On the other hand, all of the letters together are one unit. It's a Torah achas. A Sefer Torah's kashrus is dependent that every single letter needs to be there. Nothing should be missing. Nothing should be added. So what that's telling us is that there's two levels within the Yidden. There is the idea of the unity, the way they're all one, and there's also the way each one has his individual avodah. In a similar way, says the Rebbe, when we're dealing with elevating the world, which of course the world is created for Yisrael and for the Torah. There's one way of elevating the world, which is coming from the aspect of the division within Torah and Yisrael, but then there's another sort of elevation and birur, which is coming from the idea of the achdus, of the unity of Yidden and Torah. The Rebbe explains in Seif Tes, these two dargas of Torah, the level of achdus and the level of division, are really the two ideas of Torah and mitzvahs. Torah is called the Torah Achas. The Torah is the wisdom of the Eibishter, and just like Hashem Echad, His wisdom is one, and therefore all of Torah is called a Torah Achas. It's one Torah. It is in mitzvah specifically that we see more the idea of division. 613 mitzvahs, 248 mitzvahs asay, 365 mitzvahs loisasa. Why is that? Because mitzvahs is more about the person, commands and orders to the person how he should conduct himself in the world. And since a person and the world is in a way of division, and division to 613, the person has 248 limbs and 365 veins, and a person is considered a miniature world. Everything the Eibishter created in the world, He created in the person. So therefore, the mitzvahs which are given to man in a physical world is also divided into 613. Really, within Torah itself, says the Rebbe, we could also make this distinction between Nigla de Torah and Pnimiyas HaTorah. In Nigla de Torah, we see more the idea of division. So we know there's the idea of the 60 Mesechtos of Shas, which explain all the details of the various different halachos of that which is osur, that which is mutar, that which is tomei and tahor, kosher and posel, which all of that brings about the elevation and the refinement of the world. And that's why that's more in a way of ischalkos, because it's dealing with elevating the world. It's more in this division, whereas Pnimiyas HaTorah is dealing mainly just with elikus, with godliness, das elokei avicha. And therefore, in Pnimiyas HaTorah, there's more the idea of achdus. There's no machloikas there, there's no division there, etc. So too regarding Yidden, we also have these two ideas. The achdus within Yidden is mainly coming from the perspective and the outlook of the neshama. All the neshamas are one. They are all matching each other. We all have one Father. We are all rooted in Hashem Echad. On the other hand, the idea of division is because of the neshama coming down into a guf. The gufim are separate. And of course, the reason for that is because it has to come down and deal with a Gashmiistic world. More specifically, within the avoid of neshama itself, we also have this distinction. We have the idea of the person working more with his individual faculties, of his intellect and his emotions. That's more the idea of his chalkos, the detailed and specific character traits, etc. Then there's the idea of achdus, of unity, which is coming from the essence of the neshama, which is higher than division, higher than the details. And that mainly expresses itself in the idea of bitul, in the person having the feeling of bitul, of being nullified, lack of self. The chidush over here is that even though, of course, the main way, usually, of elevating the world is more coming from the aspect of the hischalkos, of the division within Torah and Yidden, whereas the idea and the focus of the achdus within Torah and Yisrael seemingly is usually higher than the world, removed from the world. Nevertheless, the avodah also has to be from this level of achdus of Torah and Yisrael. In fact, davke in that way that causes a greater and more perfect birur that we bring down into the world. Also that level of elikus which is higher than the world. The level of achdus pshuta, the way the Eibishter is one and only, higher than the world. Says the Rebbe in Seif Yud, we could explain that these two ways of refining the world, whether it's coming from the perspective of looking at the division within everything, or coming from the level of achdus, are hinted also in these two sets of Meraglim of Moshe and Yehoshua. By Moshe Rabbeinu, we said there was 12 Meraglim, one from each Shevet. They went to Tor and to check out 12 parts of the land that was divided for the 12 Shvatim, that emphasizes more the idea of elevating the Eretz Yisrael in a way of division, looking at the differences and the separations in each part of Eretz Yisrael. And that comes within Yidden and Torah again more from the level of the koichos, of the specific individual faculties. As Moshe Rabbeinu is told, L'gdaitecha, you need to use your knowledge, you need to use your seichel, your chachma, your bina, your das, also the midos, the various different emotional and character traits that come out of the moichin. So these are all the internal faculties which come in a way of division. The person needs to use his knowledge and his das, which is also hints to the idea of Torah itself coming down also within the seichel of the person. That's when division could happen. That's all by Moshe Rabbeinu. Whereas by Yeshua, where 2 people are sent and not 12, they don't go through all of Eretz Yisrael. They only go to Yericho, which is considered like the luck of Eretz Yisrael, includes all of Eretz Yisrael. Here, the emphasis is looking at elevating Eretz Yisrael more from a general point in a way that's higher than division. And that comes from the level of the Achdus within Torah and Yidden. Not from the person's own knowledge and understanding, rather because the Eibishter commanded. Not coming from the level of Das, from one of the internal faculties, and the way the Das of the person, which is an entity, rather coming just from the command of the Eibishter, in a way of Kabbalah soil, in a way of Bittul, in a way of higher than division, something that's by all Yidden equally. Says the Rebbe, this too is hinted in the fact that who was sent, Shnayim Anoshim Meraglim Cheresh, 2 people, secret spies. So first of all, again, the idea of Shnayim was 2 people and not 12, because in the Avodah of Kabbalah, Soilim Bittul, it's not so important all of the 10 koichos, Chachma, Bina, Das, etc. Rather, just the 2 main points, Mitzvah Saseh and Mitzvah Lo Saseh. Do what the Eibishter tells you, and of course, stay away from what the Eibishter tells you not to do. So the Rebbe is explaining that 12 would represent the 10 koichos, the 10 internal faculties, plus 2 general modes of asay and loisas, positive and negative. By the Meraglim of Yeshua, there's only the 2. It's not Noigeya, the 10 faculties, rather just the main points that we need to do what the Eibishter says. Also, who is sent? Anoshim Stam just says plain people. It doesn't say leaders of Yidden, because we're speaking about the idea of Kabbalah's oil and bittul, something that's in all Yidden equally. And very interestingly, the Rebbe points out in the footnote that actually was speaking about 2 very great people with these 2 spies. It was Kalev and Pinchas. And yet, they are just mentioned as Anoshim, plain people, because the emphasis over here is more the idea of the Kabbalah soil. Meraglim Cheresh, they would send secretly, because the avodah coming from Kabbalah, Soil and Bittul, is without noise, without publicity, rather in a quiet way, as the Pasuk says, Hatznei alechasim alikecha, to go in a modest way before Hashem. Says the Rebbe in Sif Yud Aleph, this will be even all more geschmack, based on what's explained in Medrash Chazal, that these 2 people, as mentioned before, were Kalev and Pinchas. What's unique about Kalev and Pinchas? Kalev is the only one besides for Yeshua, of course, that was remaining from the Meraglim of Moshe, because he had a different spirit in him and he followed the Eibishter's ways, etc. So that's Kalev. We understand why he is sent. He's the only one sent remaining from the previous spies. What about Pinchas, the son of Elazar ben Ari Rakoyin? He's from Shevet Levi. Why would Yeshua send him to conquer Eretz Yisrael if usually Shevet Levi is not involved in war at all like the rest of the Yidden? Says the Rebbe, we could explain this based on what the Gemara says, that in the future when Mashiach comes, Eretz Yisrael will be divided into 13 parts. Shevet Levi is also going to get a portion in Eretz Yisrael, as the Pasuk says, Sha'ar Levi Echad. The Rebbe quotes the Rambam. Why was Shevet Levi not getting a portion in Eretz Yisrael and in the spoils of Eretz Yisrael together with the rest of the Yidden? Because he was separated to serve Hashem, to teach the Eibishter's ways to everybody else, as the Pasuk says, Yoyiru mishpatecha liYaakov v'seiroscha liYisrael. That's why they were separated from the ways of the world, not to get involved in war and not to inherit. Rather, they are the army of Hashem. As the Pasuk says, Borech Hashem Cheloi, and the Eibishter provides for them The Eibishter is their lot and their portion, as the Pasuk says, Ani chelkecha v'nachaloscha. However, lasid lavoi, since the knowledge and the wisdom and the emes are going to increase, and the whole world will have it. Kimol haaretz deis Hashem. All of the world will only be occupied in the knowledge of Hashem, as the Pasuk says, Kimol haaretz deis Hashem kamayim liyom achasim. There will be no need to separate Shevet Levi from everyone else and from the ways of the world. The world itself will be in its perfect state. And therefore, even Shevet Levi will get a portion in Eretz Yisrael. Says the Rebbe, this division of Eretz Yisrael into 13 Shvatim is connected to this point of Achdus that we were speaking about before, this idea that goes beyond division, because 13 is actually the gematria of the word Echad. Aleph, Ches, and Daled equals 13. And the Rebbe explains. The division of Eretz Yisrael, Asid Laveh, we are told, the Gemara says, is going to be in a way that the Eibishter himself divides it. As the Pasuk says, Ve'elam machlakoisam, these are the divisions, Ne'um Hashem, says Hashem. From this we can understand that if the Eibishter himself is dividing it, even though it's a division, but it's coming from the point of Achdus. And that's why the Gemara says that the division of when Mashiach comes is not like in this world. The way things are now is that if a person has a grain field, so he not necessarily has an orchard. If he has an orchard, not necessarily he has a field of grain. Whereas when Mashiach will come, every single Yid will have in the mountains and in the valleys and in the ravens, in every single part. As the Pasuk says, Shar Uvein Echad, Shar Yehuda Echad, Shar Levi Echad, which means to say that everyone is going to have a portion, an equal portion, which includes all other sorts of portions as well. The Eibishter himself is going to make the division. And the Rebbe explains how this works. Al pi Chassidus. Bizman hazeh, these days, when the elevation and the refining of the world is coming mainly from the level of Elikus, which is more connected to the world, and therefore clothes itself and divides itself according to the world. So that's why we have all of these divisions. Whereas La'asid Lavai, after the world will be elevated, will have the level of Elikus which is higher than the world, higher than division, the level of Achdus Apshuta, the simple unity of Hashem, through the Achdus of Yidden, because all the Yidden are going to be on the level of Shevet Levi. As the Rambam tells us, that not only Shevet Levi, every single Yid that his spirit generously motivates him to be connected to Hashem could also be on this level of Kodesh Kadoshim, and the Eibishter could be his portion and his lot forever and ever, just like the Kohanim and the Levim. And therefore, Shevet Levi, together with the rest of the Levim, will all be united in one and have similar portions. More specifically, says the Rebbe, within La'asid Lavai itself, we could also say that this is the difference between the expression U'mola Ha'aretz Deyo Es Hashem, as the Rambam says in Hilchis Tshuva, to the way he adds in Hilchis Malachim the words Kamayim Layam Mechasim. Mola Ha'aretz Deyo Es Hashem means that the land itself is filled and permeated with the knowledge of Hashem. It's coming from a level of godliness that is related to the world. It's the level of Torah, Deyo Es Hashem, which is coming down according to the world, which is what we called in the Sikha, the level of Ischalkos, of division within Torah. Then we come to a higher level, Kamayim Layom Mechasim, like the water that covers the sea, that the earth is completely covered in the water of knowledge because of the level of Elikus, which is higher than the world. This is the level of Torah, the knowledge of Hashem in its most purest state. The Chachma of Hashem, that's a Torah Achas, that by coming down and being revealed in the world, is noticeable clearly that the whole world is only an expression of the Eibishter's Chachma, as the Pasuk says, Kulam b'Chachma Asisa, and as the Razal tells us that everything that the Eibishter created in the world was only for his honor. And what is honor? Honor is Torah. Or to use the expression of the Rambam in the beginning of his Sefer, we know we always connect the end to the beginning. Right after the beginning, after the end, we go straight to the beginning, and we're always in a renewed way. The Rambam says, Yesoid is the foundation of all foundation, and the pillar of all wisdom is to know that there's a first existence and that everything comes from him. As the Pasuk says, Ein oid mulvadoi. Says the Rebbe that the preparation for the complete Eretz Yisrael, the way it's going to be lost in Lavai, that it's going to be divided to 13 Shvatim, also Shar Levi Echad, that comes from the level of the Achdus of Yidden and of Torah, that already started by the Meraglim of Yeshua. That he went ahead and sent, in addition to what Moshe Rabbeinu sent. So he is now sending, in addition to Kalev, he's also sending Pinchas. Pinchas is from Shevet Levi, that 13th Shevet, which we said is the gematria of the word Echad. So Yeshua is already preparing, so to speak, for the way things are going to be when Mashiach comes. Says the Rebbe in Sif Yud Beis, based on everything we explained until now, about the sending of the spies, both of Moshe and even more so the spies of Yeshua, and that how this all emphasizes the idea of elevating the land, specifically coming from the idea of the Achdus of Yidden and Torah, we can now also explain the connection of the Parsha of the Meraglim and the Parsha of Tzitzis, which is discussed in the same Parsha. By first explaining the mile of the mitzvah of Tzitzis, that even though it's one individual mitzvah, and yet we say it weighs equally and includes all of the mitzvahs, as the Pasuk says, or is called mitzvahs Hashem. Seemingly the question can be asked, since mitzvahs are in a way of division, they are separate mitzvahs. As we said before, they are commands to people in how to act in this world, according to the vision of the world and the person. How does it make sense that you have one individual mitzvah that includes all of the mitzvahs? So the explanation is that really even mitzvahs that are commands to the person of how to act in the world, their real inyan is that they are mitzvahs of the Torah, that they're the wisdom and will of the Eibishter, and therefore really inside of them too, there is this nekuda of achdus of Hashem Echad, that Hashem and His will and His wisdom are all one. And this is specifically noticeable in the mitzvah of Tzitzis, where we are told, is called mitzvah Hashem, that by looking at the Tzitzis, which is the gematria of 600, along with the 8 strings and the 5 knots, which is 613, we then see this idea of achdus in all of the mitzvahs. We look at one mitzvah and we have all 613 because they are all mitzvahs havaya, they are all mitzvahs of the Torah, they are all the will and wisdom of the Eibishter. And from Tzitzis, it comes down to the rest of the mitzvahs as well. That the way we perform them is not only because of the division of the mitzvahs, how the mitzvahs are divided according to the world and the person, but also doing the mitzvahs from the nekuda, from the point of achdus within the mitzvahs, as the pasuk says, "Leman tizkuru v'asisim" is called mitzvah. That the way of doing the mitzvahs is to remember that they are my mitzvahs, that they are Hashem's mitzvahs. The nekuda of achdus that's higher than this division. The one point that's within all the mitzvahs, that they're all Hashem's mitzvahs. This is also the point of the sending of the 12 Meraglim to tour the land, which this story finishes with the Parsha of Tzitzis, that even as each Shevet is involved in his personal part of Eretz Yisrael, nevertheless it's also permeated with the nekuda of achdus, of Yidden and Torah, that point that's higher than division, as this is emphasized in the fact that the Nasi of every single Shevet went around all of Eretz Yisrael, even the parts of the other Shvatim. Says the Rebbe in Sif Yud Gimel, based on all of this we can understand the lesson from the sending of the Meraglim and the avodah of each and every Yid. The lesson is, of course, this emphasis of the nekuda of achdus within Yidden and with Torah. That is, even the individual of avodah of each and every Yid, the way each and every Yid is different to the other, including also the idea of l'daitecha, that every person has his opinion and his way of understanding things, and ein deyosayim shavois, the main thing of a person is his seichel, and yet it needs to be permeated with a nekuda of achdus, of unity, that's higher than division. And this is of course expressed first and foremost in avas Yisrael and achdus Yisrael, that a person thinks with his das, with his own mind, l'daitecha, about the needs of another Yid, how he can help another Yid in everything that he needs, both beruchnius and begashmius. And as we say every single morning before davening, and when we say it, when we move our lips, the Gemara says that's already also considered an action. We say, "Areini mekabel alai mitzvah sasei, shal v'yahavta l'reacha kamoicha." And more specifically, says the Rebbe, this idea of the achdus and the avas Yisrael, the Rebbe explains, but in the general division of Yidden, both in regards to Yisachar and Zvulun. And the Rebbe explains, in addition to the unity that happens, that also Yidden that learn Torah are fulfilling the mitzvah of tzedakah, as well as those that are business people are koivei at times for learning Torah. So that's one way of unity, a general way that we're all involved in both avodas. In addition to that, there needs to be the idea of achdus in each of these parts of Torah and tzedakah. For example, says the Rebbe, in tzedakah, there's one way that you give tzedakah on your own, but you can also give tzedakah for the schus, for the merit of somebody else, and for many other Yidden. In fact, the Rebbe says there are some people that the Eibishter benched them with such richness that they give tzedakah l'schus, for the merit of every Yid, man and woman, of the generation, whether it's 1 cent or 5 cents for each other Yid. And the Rebbe says, halavai, it would be so great if more people would be the same and do the same. So that's an example of tzedakah, achdus, giving for the merit of other people. In Torah, the Rebbe says, learning Torah with another Yid. And in fact, of course, the idea of hamidu talmidim harbe, setting up lots of talmidim. In fact, it's a mitzvah saseh shal Torah that every chacham Yisrael, every individual, should go ahead and teach other people. V'yesh lo hitzav, says the Rebbe, we could add that this nekuda of achdus of Yidden and Torah specifically emphasized in the limud Rambam and learning Rambam. The minig that was publicized in recent years to learn a daily share Rambam of 3 prakim a day, where all Yidden unite in learning all of Torah. The Rambam is a sefer that collects all of Torah Shabbal Peh, as discussed and explained in other places at length. And more importantly, the achdus of Yidden and Torah by spreading chassidus, pnimiyus HaTorah, the secrets of the Torah, that brings about the unity of the hidden part of the Yidden and the hidden part of Hashem, spreading it to the outside, to the greatest distances, as specifically in our generation was accomplished, specifically also in the lower part of the world, the place where Matan Torah was not. This is the place where the place of the Nasi Hadoir settled, Kvoit Kedushas Moiri V'chami Admur, the Moshe of our generation. And from here, Chassidus and the wellsprings are being spread out to all parts of the world. And for a period of 50 years, just mention over here that the Sikha was said very close to the time of 50 years when the Rebbe came to America, of course, being a bit more than 50 years also since the Frierdiker Rebbe came. But the idea of 50 years is of course Olam, which by adding and spreading Chassidus to the outside, which is already done in a way of more than plenty, publicizing the knowledge and understanding of Elikus, L'daitecha, as we said, in a way that it comes into our own minds, we are zoiche immediately to the time that the whole world will be involved only in the knowledge of Hashem. And therefore Yidden will be chachamim gdolim, very wise, knowing all the secrets and the hidden parts of the Torah, and understand the Eibishter, the knowledge of Hashem according to the ability of man, as the Pasuk says, Ki mal haaretz deas Hashem kamayim layom achasim. And the Rebbe concludes in Seif Yudalid, V'chein tiyeh lanu, this should be with us, that immediately on this very Shabbos, on the Shabbos Kodesh of Parsha Shlach, should be fulfilled by Poel Mamish, the Bsura, the good news that says in the Parsha of Shavua that they were told that they're going to go into Eretz Yisrael. And as it says in the end of the Haftarah, that Hashem has given the land into us, and the hearts of all people have melted before us, including that in the very last moments of Golus, we stand strong for the complete Eretz Yisrael, regarding all parts of Eretz Yisrael that was given by the Eibishter to the ownership of the Yidden. Not to chas v'shalim give back anything of Eretz Yisrael to the Goyim, and all the Yidden come into a complete Eretz Yisrael. Shleimus bishleimus, a complete Eretz Yisrael with incomplete. That is the land of 10 nations, including also the land of Keni, Knizi, V'Kadmoini, that will be divided for 13 Shvatim. Within Eretz Yisrael, we come to Yerushalayim, Ira Kodesh, the city that was not divided to Shvatim, and to the third base Hamikdash. And there we bring number 1, a carbon toida, a carbon of thanksgiving for the Yidden going out of the imprisonment of Golus. And we pour the wine with all the klishir, with all the instruments. And we're going to say the Shir Chodesh, the special new song of the Geula, that after which there is no Golus. And we learn the Torah Chadasha that will me'iti teitze, come out from Hashem in a way that we won't have to teach each other, because everyone is going to know Hashem directly. For oidvu, and most importantly, that all of this happens b'poyol mamish, and take it from miyad mamish.